Right, here we are. This is number 5 of Matt's chats. And before I introduce my 5th guest and probably one of my favourite, hopefully one of my favourite guests as we go, I'm going to tell him something that he doesn't know yet. Many people will know this young man from playing in UFO, from being in Grand Slam and Wild Horses and Stampede. I'm going to tell you about it. I've known him a long time. I was in a pub in London in about the mid-'80s. And a guy walked in and quite recognisable, quite down to earth, but I was quite nervous. I had a couple of drinks and I went up to this guy and I got plucked up the courage to talk to him. And we were having a conversation and asked him about what guitarists, this guy who was a guitarist, he was influenced by, or not influenced, but was really fond of and thought was talented. And after all the obvious names like B.B. King, came out the name Laurence Archer. This guy was Gary Moore. And I think that's one of the biggest accolades that I can actually give to anybody is that he rated you really highly as a guitarist. So it's with great pleasure that I introduced you, Laurence Archer. Hello.
Hello. How you doing? How you doing, man? Good to hear you. Good to see you.
You've been a busy boy?
Yeah, it's been a bit manic over the last, I don't know, about a year with Grand Slam out on the road and writing and the new album on its way. The re-release of the albums I did with UFO on Cherry Red, and yeah, it's been quite hectic really. And you know, I live in Spain and I play here now and again, do a few appearances, so it's pretty non-stop at the moment. I think I've been on about 30 planes in the last 2 months, which is just driving mad. And I've got to go have another one tomorrow to Planet Rock stop tomorrow. Sorry, on Friday. We're playing on Friday. So, you know, looking forward to that one.
No, good stuff. That'd be good. By the time this comes out, this interview will go probably on the 15th of December. So what a great gig you did at Planet Rock. So honestly, you were amazing.
Yeah, I know. We had a fantastic gig, mate. We blew the roof off.
Oh, brilliant stuff. Well, I'm going to take you back now, Laurence. We're going to go a little back because I first met you back in 1982. I went to Reading that year and we saw a band called Stampede and we thought they were amazing. You know, me and my friend Con, and we couldn't stop talking about this band. And then one day I'm walking along Teddington High Street and who cycles past me but you on a bike. And I'm thinking, that's a guitarist from Stampede, isn't it? And a very special memory because Ruben, your stepdad, lived over the road from you, over from us rather, and introduced, and some very exciting times for us, you know, to come and meet you guys and everything you've done for me over the years, which we'll come on to in a minute. But what started the love for guitar for you?
Well, it's a story I've told many times. That basically, Ruben, my stepfather, I was a mad cyclist. I was a crazy cyclist. I love cycling, and I was a keep fit fanatic. But my old man took me to the Rainbow in London to see essentially a gig that was put on by Pete Townsend and Ronnie Lane for Eric Clapton to get him out of his, he was going through a bad time with his drug addictions and various other things. So they put this concert on purely to get him out and about. So I went to see that concert. To be honest, it was probably the first proper concert I'd ever been to, as in what we would know as a rock concert or that type of ilk. And it blew me away. And I just, next day came back, sold one of my bikes, bought a guitar, and sat there for probably hours on end, annoying my parents with a guitar around my neck, you know, at dinner, on the toilet, wherever it was. I didn't take the guitar off. I don't know. And then obviously preceding that, I started to get into different guitar players. I mean, I listened to Clapton a lot and the old Blues Breakers albums, Peter Green. Then it went on to, you know, Gary and various other people. So yeah, I mean, it was the whole experience with Clapton and the Rainbow and the whole thing about it. And I just went, yeah, that's what I'd like to do. That's what I'd like to do. Because I you know, my vocation was in art, you know, which I did go into at some point with art direction into film and various other things. But my love became the guitar.
Now, well, we're very lucky that you did, because from moving on from Stampede, which was with Ruben, and that's where, you know, my band at the time, it was called PSO. We supported you at the Red Lion, and you were leaving because a neighbour of mine on the Kew Road had poached you for his band. Some fella called Phil Liner had got
Indeed,
you.
yes.
And I'm very grateful to you, because in 1983 I couldn't get in to see Thin Lizzy at their final ever gig. We were outside, stuck outside. It was sold out. Couldn't get in. And the very next year, you're playing lead guitar, and I'm sitting on a back case in your dressing room talking to Phil Liner, and that's all down to you. Those were special times for you. You had a great relationship with Phil, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I mean, it was a very special relationship we had, probably down to his state of mind at the time, what he was going through. I was very young and in awe of Phil, but I was probably one of the very straight people in his life. You know, I mean, I didn't have a drug addiction. I didn't drink very much. I think he saw me as a very young, married even, young man with a stable environment around me, and we became very close. And you know, obviously the writing, I'd grown up with Lizzie and bands of that ilk, so my writing was naturally in that ilk of rock. So we connected very quickly, and I was a pretty prolific writer, which I don't think many of the other members of Lizzie or any other thing that Phil was involved with were particularly versed in writing, and I was pretty heavy on the writing side. You know, I mean, I wasn't really seeing myself as a guitar hero so much as more of a writer at that time. So we connected heavily in that way, and we became very, very close. You know, it was going through the whole process of the last sort of years of his life. He was trying to get away from the bad influences and restart his life, be reborn again. But unfortunately, it was a very difficult situation for him, because temptation was there always, and as we know, we're all weak.
We are
in those. So, but yeah, I did have a very special relationship with. Probably not a lot of people knew that, not even probably within the Lizzie or Grand Slam environment. They probably didn't realise how much time Phil and I spent together, talking, writing, we became really good friends.
You know, you behaved with a lot of dignity after his death. I remember that at the time, thinking you didn't exploit any of that. In fact, if anything, you went away from it. And then one day you're listening to the radio and you hear, Dedication come on as someone else playing guitar, and that must have hurt. That must have hurt a lot to hear that.
I mean, to be honest, it's hard enough to make any money out of this industry as it is, and it's been that way probably since the mid-'80s, since what I would call the record companies' drive to not incorporate rock bands on the labels anymore, for example. Mm-hmm. So to some extent, rock was a dead genre, and as I said, it's just hard enough to make money. And then when you see basically what was your own management exploiting your talent and your songs, and it wasn't just one song, it's been two or three. It's difficult to take on board, but on the other hand, it was quite nice to have it aired in whatever way it was going to be aired as a song.
I heard it straight away. I heard you. As soon as I heard that riff the first time, I said, "That's Laurence. That's Laurence." You could, and people who know you would know that. Yeah. You know that you're, and having.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you a little bit of background about that song. I mean, basically, I did write that song for Stampede originally, and I had it registered, which is why they didn't get away with. They didn't put me down as a credit on the album because they were trying to sell it as a Lizzie hidden gem.
Yeah.
But they couldn't move any further forward with it because I'd already had it registered as a song on PRS and the publishing prior to its release. So my main disappointment with all of it was the fact of the way it was done. If they'd come and approached me originally and said, would you mind if we did this and whatever, then maybe I would have thought differently about it, but it's the whole way they did it. But we, the song, basically the reason that song appeared was we did, I think we did a couple of shows and we ended up in London and we did the Crystal Palace show, which was the last
I went to that
farewell Status Quo
farewell gig in '84.
And we had a session booked at EMI, which was basically put in by an A&R guy for us to record at EMI to put some demos forward for EMI. And we went to the studio. Unfortunately, Phil was not in a good way. He was quite ill for various reasons. And I was sort of left in the studio on my own, for want of a better word, with me and Robbie Brennan mainly. And I just started putting down tracks that I had, which included, there's a thing called Hot and Spicy and a couple of other things. I mean, they were a bit jam-like because we were expecting to do other tracks.
Yeah.
And then I laid down the whole track basically with Robbie Brennan. I played the guitar and then I played the bass. I think I might have even done guide vocals on it. I can't even remember, but then Phil came in at a later date, and that was the only ever recording of Phil singing that song. That was the only ever recording of that song. But essentially, what people don't know is I actually, on the record that Lizzie released, it's me still playing bass because Phil never replaced the bass on that song. He just came in and sang over it. And one day, so that's where that song arrived, was purely because Phil wanted to. I played it to Phil, and Phil wanted to do it. So I just used the opportunity then to just do it all myself on that session.
But then you moved on. Yeah, you put together Rhode Island Red with Mike, the wonderful Mike Dyer, a lovely fella he is. And I saw you a few times then, but then you seem to lose interest. You seem to move away from music. Was it you were disillusioned with the way it was being run, or you just decided to follow other things?
At the time with Rhode Island Red, we were managed by Colin Johnson and the Status, basically what was the old school of Status Quo in their prime. They were managed by Colin Johnson and Ron Brown, and we were managed by them. And we couldn't, although we had a lot of interest, as I said, going back to the earlier thing, there was no rock bands getting signed at that point. In fact, I think the last rock band to be signed in that era was Thunder. So it was a sparse affair. It was knocking your head against a brick wall trying to get a deal, and we'd have A&R men down and they'd be going, yeah, this is great. I don't know, I might be turning down the Beatles, and you'd be going, but nobody wanted, to record companies, they wanted a fast fix. They didn't want to do development deals. They didn't want to do 2 albums. They just wanted a fast fix. They just wanted, a single and whatever. So essentially all record companies went the other way with boy bands, pop acts, and the whole industry started changing. The the major record companies were being run by accountants rather than people like in the old days, like Chris Black and all those guys that were involved, or they were players, or they were managers, or they were promoters, or they were people that loved music for the right reason. And when all the companies changed, the whole rock thing sort of fell away. So we struggled to get any gravitas with Rhode Island Red, even though it was a great band, and I think we had a great band and great songs.
They were.
So from there, I didn't purposely do anything in any way at all. I was happy to carry on with that, but I was getting offers from UFO at the time and various other people, and after a while, I thought, if I don't jump now and do something, then maybe I'm going to be sitting here doing nothing and give up altogether at some point. So eventually, after a lot of negotiations, I joined up with UFO in '89 or whatever it was. Yeah.
See, I remember the High Stakes, the album you did. I think you recorded down in Burgess Hill studio.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
we did quite a bit at Burgess Hill. We did it all over the place, actually. We did. We were at a residential studio in Launceston. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but a well-known residential studio with Kit Walven, God bless his soul. And we did about 3 weeks pre-production rehearsals in this place called Bluestone, which was basically a big stables in the middle of Bluestone in Wales, which had this open barn and the front of the barn was just literally glass. They just put this whole facade on, which was glass, that you could just look out over the Bluestone mountains, and it was fantastic. But again, I ended up writing most of the material. Phil, the other Phil Mogg, he'd come in and you wouldn't know where he was going with it. He'd just come in and listen to what you were doing and then walk away again. And then,
But it's from here you developed a great friendship with Pete Wade, didn't you? I mean, you became really good buddies with him, didn't you?
Yeah. Pete and I have always been quite close. I mean, we had some tenuous links with different people, and also there was, I lived in Teddington, and there was a big movement. A lot of musicians moved to Twickenham in the early '80s or late '70s. There was a lot of people. John Fiddler from Medicine Head, and Pete Wade, a few of the Wasted guys. Or there was quite a lot of people. So I had a few tenuous links with Pete, and Pete contacted me quite a few times over the years to say, would you be interested in coming in and filling in the spot? Obviously, I, as a kid, spent hours listening to Strangers in the Night when it was the album, on the deck.
It was that and Frampton Comes Alive, wasn't it? It was those two.
Yeah, that was those two were my two favorite albums. I didn't really, I wasn't a big Purple or Zeppelin fan so much, but those two albums, those two live albums, I just think are absolutely mad and classic, and I don't think you could. I mean, the Phantom one is just incredible.
It's interesting. Your style of playing is very unique. And whenever I hear it, I know it's you, and that's quite a thing to have your own trademark. Now, you gave up guitar. You went and started working with props and working on Death in Paradise and Little Britain and things like that. I mean, how did that come about? Was that just something that you fell into, or?
Well, A few of my school friends went straight from school into the BBC, and they would be working in the BBC library, or the film library, or doing whatever. And then eventually, one or two of them went into the art department, the props department, and they continued to work in that. And then one day I was talking to my mate, and he said, "Would you like to come in and cover me? I'm going on holiday and I can't find anybody to cover me. Would you come in?" Now, I spent a lot of time when I was a kid. Ruben and I, basically, we moved several times. We'd move into a wreck, do it up, and so I was quite handy with my hands. So I just started working, covering this guy, and the designer of that production asked me to come back. And then before I know it, I became the boss of the guys that got me in, which is a bit weird. And I had the old school title of prop master, art director. So
good. It comes up on the TV credits. I see it every so often. It comes up.
Yeah. I mean, I did. I did all the extras series. I mean, loads of the Jonathan Creek series. Mm-hmm. Some of the flagship one-off things that BBC used to do. There was this program called Stag, which was quite a big thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had a really good career in the film industry. I mean, and it was good for me. I did walk away from guitar playing, but whenever I was on location filming, we could be away for 6 months somewhere, and I'd always take an acoustic guitar with me. I didn't have any ambition to come back into it at that point, but I always had that thing in the back of my head about re-recording the Grand Slam songs the way they should be seen, and that's how the whole thing came about. But prior to me doing that, it started off me getting back into the playing thing. Was that Polydor re-released the Stampede albums?
That's right.
And Ruben wanted to do a showcase, so I started playing again purely for that reason. And then it went on from there. And then Clive Edwards had this idea that myself and him, who were ex-UFO, Danny Perrinell, who's ex-UFO, and we got in Rocky Newton, who's ex-Emma and Michael Schenker. And we formed that, and we had some great times. We were playing quite a lot of European festivals, and getting quite a lot of work. So that's sort of how I fell back into it, as more of a routine to playing.
Of course, you're forgetting the most important thing was when you helped me with my Eurovision entry, the United Kingdom.
Yes, obviously.
I mean,
yes.
You mustn't forget that. We very nearly got the gig.
It's a classic. It's got to be out there, mate. You've got to put it on something.
Yes, I don't think it would have beaten the Bearded Lady, but I think it would have had a good stand. But I could tell it was sanitized because they chose a girl called Molly who had a song called "Children of the Universe." So I think they must have taken our idea and just sort of. Anyway, beside that.
Well, I don't know what your opinion is about this, but we're talking about the Eurovision Song Contest.
Yeah.
The whole of the music industry says this is a general thing. It's like, oh yeah, rock music's dead. Rock music's dead. All the Gen X's are all starting to get into the 80s rock music. Yeah. But the last 2 years, the songs that have won the Eurovision have been more or less heavy rock songs.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how does that equate? I just don't. Yeah. If you give people the choice, would they prefer to listen to rock than whatever they get full sped with all this shit that's on the radio?
I know. Well, the youngsters are into it. I know with my kids and their schools, they love it. You play them something, they're like, what? They've never seen it before. It's almost like something new to them, and they think, wow, why didn't we get into this before? So it will come full circle. But which means,
I think it will.
I think it will, and it leads me nicely on to Grand Slam, because you're recording a new album now.
Yes, we've done 8 tracks so far, and we're back in on the 11th of December to finish another 2 new tracks and finish off the last 3 of the 8. So, I mean, they sound immense. I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but they do sound immense. And I played it to the guys from when I was at the All Star Festival. I played it to Chip from Enough's Enough, a couple of the tracks, and I played it to Primo Bonelli, who's Italian Frontiers guy, and he immediately said, if this was 1986, it would be a massive hit. I mean, you know, that's just a weird thing, isn't it? It's just a strange thing to think that the mentality.
People have to put time things and ages on stuff. I think music is music, and when you write from the heart, it doesn't matter what genre it is. People, I think, will appreciate it. And you know, I think it's great now. There's a lot of we're playing a lot of festivals ourselves, and we're seeing the reaction of people, and it's great. You got the old, the young, the new. Everyone's sort of it'll never go away. It'll always be there. There'll always be a market for it. So when will that come out? When will that? When you're looking to release that?
Well, we're looking at 2 different ways of releasing. One, we were looking at doing a slow release because the industry and people's attention span has changed so much because everything's so trigger happy that we want to do a slow release, really. So maybe, you know, maybe 1 track a month or do whatever, and then have the album at the end of it as a. But we also, you know, in this day and age, the only way you can make your money back for the cost of recording is by selling hard copy. So we have new management, and we will be scouting the album basically, and we own our original album, the first album. We own that, so we've got that as a bit of bargaining power. But we will be looking at releasing it, I would say, maybe March next year.
Just in time for all the festivals, for all the summer festivals. You can go out.
And I mean, hopefully we'll get on some of the bigger festivals this year. I mean, I don't know. You know, it's you have to pre-plan these things so far ahead these days. But yeah, we're going to be very busy towards the end of the year already. We're being booked up towards the end of 2023.
Fantastic.
And we've got like the rock cruise in Sweden in April, I think. We're going back to do another show on Phil's birthday in Ireland.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I mean, this year we've been, you know, France, Belgium, Holland, Sweden, Ireland, Spain, and a few others I can't remember. But we've been pretty busy spreading the gospel, as it were. But you know, it's a slow process. It's the other thing that's very difficult in this day and age is if you, for example, because I've come out and called this Grand Slam, the promoters have difficulty on where to place it, because it's a bit like, is it a retro band or is it a new band? And even if so, we're constantly in that process of trying to put the band into the slot where it's a new project. Yes, we have the historical hit with Phil and the songs that I wrote with Phil, and but it is an ongoing project.
Well, I hope the one thing I hope from this is that you get the I was going to say the reward, but I think actually get the justification of what you've done, because I think I can hear it as a fellow musician. I hear what you do, and you've always been great for me. You helped me with my first single. You helped me with my first demo. You did the Eurovision thing. You've always been there for me, and I've always looked up to you in that way musically. And I like the way you write. I like the way that you play guitar. And I think it is about time you got the recognition. That was the word I was looking for, that you thoroughly deserve. And I'm hoping with this album that's going to happen. So anyone who's out there right now, Grand Slam, check them out. Go to their website, check out their releases, buy their merchandise, go and see them wherever they're playing. They are a great band. It's a great lineup. Mike is a great front man. You've got fantastic lead guitarist, fantastic rhythm section. And I think it's going to be a great year for you next year. 2023 will be the year that finally everyone gets to see the real Laurence Archer.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks.
It's an absolute
Thanks,
pleasure.
yeah.
Thanks so much for talking to me today. I know you're a busy man, and I can tell with the jet lag, and you've managed to talk through this to get up and speak to me. So, listen, I wish you all the best, and for Grand Slam and the future. And I'll definitely come and check you out whenever I can, wherever I'm free.
Yeah. Well, obviously you've already seen us at Rockstock, so you know how great we were.
Rockstock was amazing. Honestly, it was unbelievable. Honestly, they just tore it up. The greatest match ever.
Yeah, we killed it, mate. We killed it.
Have a great Christmas, and
Thank you.
Be careful on that bike of yours.
Best of luck with your
we got a few coming up. We've got Hard Rock Hell and a few others there. Gradually getting there. Still behind you, but
no, it's fantastic, mate.
Thank
Keep
you.
on.
Speak soon, all right? God bless.
Yeah.